Hello everybody, and welcome back. Last time we explored almost the entirety of the Anemos Inner Sanctum, and we went over all the RNGs related to the dungeon. This time we're not going to advance any further, and that is because I did a little bit of grinding off screen, so everyone is now at least level 54 or higher. And since we have now unlocked every single synergy by level, this episode is going to focus mostly on the final rank of every single class. We will be going over any new synergy that we may have missed, and I will try to give an overall analysis of every class in preparation for the final challenge at the end of the dungeon. So let's begin with the mono elemental starting classes. First off, we have the Squire. In its final rank of Slayer, it has impressive HP stat, pretty poor synergy, average attack, below average defense, and average agility, coupled with a variety of hard-hitting synergies in the form of the Spire, Gaia and Odyssey synergies, as well as some useful support synergies such as Cure and Revive. The Squire is an overall average class. It is rather bulky with an impressive HP stat, however one major flaw is the low synergy stat, which ensures that certain synergies such as Odyssey, Stone Spire and Grand Gaia will quickly drain your synergy pool in a couple of turns, forcing you to resort to other means to deal damage. One final thing to add is that Grand Gaia, alongside another synergy in the Samurai class, are the last two synergies that unlock at level 54. Up next, we have the Guard class. In its final rank of Champion, it has an impressive HP stat, pretty poor synergy, below average attack and average defense, and dismal agility. It does boast some very strong synergies such as Inferno, Pyroclasm and Liquifier, and some rather useful support synergies in the form of Guard and Protect. The class also has access to the Impair and Debilitate synergies, which may miss occasionally, so their usefulness may vary. Overall, the Guard has some of the same flaws as the Squire, meaning that it has some very strong and expensive synergies, but a small amount of synergy to use them with. It is also a very slow class, ensuring that Garrett will most likely go last. Up next, we have the Flame User class. In its final rank of Justice, it has pretty good HP, decent synergy, below average attack and defense, and decent agility. It boasts the very strong Fume line of synergies, which work best against bosses, as well as the multi-target hitting Beam line of synergies. As for support, it has the Impair and Debilitate synergies, whose usefulness may vary, and the Aura line for multi-target healing, which are rather useful, despite not being as strong as the Mercury base Wish line of synergies. Overall, the class has some hard-hitting synergies as well as useful support, boasting stats that are similar to Squire in certain ways, but without the low synergy value, which makes the Flame User a solid class, and it is perfectly fine to keep Jenna in this class throughout the entirety of your playthrough. Up next, we have the Windseer. In its final rank of Sorcerer, it has decent HP, very good synergy, poor attack and defense, and very good agility. It boasts a wide variety of Jupiter synergies with the Ray, Whirlwind and Plasma lines. The unremarkable attack and defense stats can be somewhat alleviated since the class has access to the very useful Impact and Ward line of support synergies, as well as Leap and Bind, which may miss occasionally. Overall, the Windseer is rather underwhelming. Though it is fast and has a couple of strong synergies, it is rather frail. And it is important to point out that the Hermit class, that both Jupiter and Mercury adepts can access, is a straight upgrade in its final rank over the Windseer's Sorcerer. So it may be best to trade Jin between your Jupiter and Mercury adepts. Up next, we have the Water Seer. In its final rank of Angel, it has above average HP, pretty good synergy, below average attack and defense, and poor agility. Though it boasts some strong synergies in the Frost and Ice line, there is a substantial gap between the Glacier and Ice Missile synergies, and it is ultimately best suited for support, since the main draw of the class is the Amazing Ply and Wish line of healing synergies, which, alongside the Cure Poison and Restore synergies, make up a wide array of support synergies. Overall, the class is decent for support, though the low agility stat may cause Mia to take action after the enemy, which may end up reducing the effectiveness of healing synergies. What was previously stated about the Hermit's final rank being a superior choice applies here as well. And for the final starting class, we have the Mariner. In its final rank of Admiral, it has impressive HP, below average synergy, attack, defense, and agility. Some of the same problems as the Water Seer apply here as well. Though the Glacier, Megacool, and Diamondberg make up a good array of offensive synergies, there is a significant level gap between Glacier and Megacool. The synergy stat, though not as low as the squires, is still low enough that during lengthy battles it will surely run out. The class does have access to some useful support in the form of Ply, Cure Poison, Restore and Break synergies, but its low agility stat may hinder the effectiveness of any of them. One last thing to mention is that the Mariner is the only starting class that learns Avoid, so it is unique in that regard. Alright, so that's all the starting classes. Up next we have the dual elemental classes. First, let's go over the Brute class. In its final rank of Chaos Lord, it has outstanding HP, poor synergy, pretty good attack, below average defense and above average agility. It boasts some hard-hitting Venus and Mars synergies with the Planet Diver, Spire and Blast lines, as well as the Growth line, which will see a lot of use since there is a significant gap between Wild Growth and Supernova. The class also has a considerable number of support synergies whose usefulness may vary. Haunt, Condemn and the Impair line are rather unreliable since they tend to miss. The effect of Curse is useless, even if it didn't miss, though the one bright spot among the line of support is the Revive synergy. Overall, the Brute class is sturdy, hits hard and is swift enough to take action before the enemy most of the times. However, the poor synergy stat continues to be a major flaw. Up next we have the Hermit class. In its final rank of Wizard, it has pretty good HP, impressive synergy, below average attack and defense and pretty good agility. It boasts some hard-hitting synergies such as the excellent Prism and Plasma lines, as well as a large amount of support synergies with a varying degree of usefulness. The Impact line helps to make up for the class's below average attack stat. Bind can be unreliable, especially since some Jinn can fulfill that role with 100% accuracy. Break is always useful. Drain and Side Drain seem out of place, since the Hermit already has high HP and synergy stats as it is. And Wish fulfills the role of healing far better than Drain ever could. Overall, a very solid choice. As mentioned previously, the Wind and Water Seer should consider trading into the Hermit, in exchange for losing some support synergies such as Ward, Cure Poison, Sleep and Restore. They gain more elemental coverage, as well as stat boost and access to the best multi-target healing synergy in the series. There is one flaw, however. The Hermit is best adapted at the middle point of your playthrough, ideally by the time your party has reached level 22, since there are some significant gaps in the synergy lineup before and after that point. Up next we have the Apprentice and Page classes, which share many similarities and thus we will go over them as a pair. In their final rank of War Adept, they have impressive HP, pretty good synergy, average attack, below average defense and pretty good agility. They boast a wide variety of support synergies, which vary slightly between classes, as well as usefulness. Both possess the rather unnecessary Delude, Drain and Side Drain synergies, as well as the unreliable Sleep and Weaken line of synergies. The Apprentice has unique access to the Haunt and Curse synergies, while the Page has unique access to the Guard line of synergies, which is better, at least in my opinion. When it comes to the attack-oriented synergies, they both have the Astral Blast line for strong single-target Jupiter damage and the Gaia line for the Apprentice and Volcano line for the Page. Overall, both classes have high HP values as well as pretty good synergy and agility stats, and the vast array of support synergies can help make up for the average attack and defense stats, the latter stat only in the Page class. Their biggest flaw would be their lack of a multi-target synergy, Jupiter synergy, and since the synergy lineup consists mostly of support moves, there is a significant gap between the attack-oriented synergies. Up next, we have the Jupiter and Mercury Pilgrim classes, which we will go over as a pair, similar to what we did with the Apprentice and Page. In their final rank of Guru, they have pretty good HP and synergy stats, below average attack, average defense and pretty good agility. They boast some hard-hitting synergies in the form of the Volcano line, which is shared between them, the Slash and Plasma lines for the Jupiter Pilgrim and the Douse and Prism lines for the Mercury Pilgrim. When it comes to the support synergies, the Jupiter Pilgrim has access to the Bind, Drain, Side Drain as well as the Ward line, whereas the Mercury Pilgrim has access to the Cure Poison, Restore, Break and the Wish synergy line, which is always a welcome addition. Overall, the Pilgrim classes are pretty solid, though none of their stats stand out amongst the others. They are very well-rounded classes. Whichever version you prefer is up to personal taste. I personally prefer the Mercury version since I will take any chance to add Wish to the list of available synergies. Up next we have the Jupiter and Mercury Seer classes. In their final rank of Oracle, they have pretty good HP, impressive synergy, below average attack and defense and above average agility. This is the one case where I would say right off the bat, that the Mercury Seer is downright the better of the two, since the main difference between them is the fact that the Mercury Pilgrim has the Froth line of synergies, whereas the Jupiter Pilgrim has the rather weak Bolt line of synergies, which is ultimately weaker than the Growth line of synergies, which is shared between them. As for support, the Jupiter Seer has access to the Bind, Drain, Sidereign and Ward line, whereas the Mercury Seer has access to the Cure Poison, Restore Break and Wish line, and both of them share the Cure line and the Revive synergies. Overall, the Seer classes are decent, with the Mercury Seer serving more as support. The biggest downside would be that even with Froth Spiral, their damage output is nothing special. And finally we have the last dual elemental pair, the Venus and Mars Swordsman classes. In their respective final ranks of Protector and Radiant, they have impressive HP, poor synergy, average attack and defense, and poor agility. Both classes boast a wide variety of support synergies, sharing the Cure Poison, Restore, Break, Ply and Wish lines, with the Venus version having access to the Revive synergy while the Mars version gets the Guard line. When it comes to the offensive synergies, both classes share the Cutting Edge line, while the Venus Swordsman gets the Thorn line over the Mars Swordsman's weaker Fiery Blast line. Overall, the Swordsman classes are rather sturdy with a high HP stat and average stats in attack and defense. They are however rather slow and they have a small synergy stat, and they lack an offensive multi-target Mercury synergy, though they boast some of the best support synergies in the game. Alright, on to the Tri-Elemental classes, and since we just went over the Swordsman classes, we might as well start with the Dragoon. In its final rank of Paladin, it has outstanding HP, average synergy, above average attack and defense, and poor agility. In a way, the Dragoon is a mixture of the Venus and Mars Swordsman classes, though with higher stats all around, boasting both the Thorn and Blast lines as well as the Cutting Edge line. Unfortunately, not all of the support synergies from both Swordsman classes have carried over. The Revive, Break and Guard line are missing. Overall, the Dragoon is a very bulky class with amazing stats in HP and fairly decent stats in attack and defense. The agility stat, though improved, is still unremarkable, though the issue with the small synergy stat of the Swordsman class has been somewhat alleviated. The class is, however, still lacking an offensive multi-target Mercury synergy. Up next, we have the Medium class. In its final rank of Dark Mage, it has pretty good HP, impressive synergy, below average attack and defense, and pretty good agility. Though it boasts a wide variety of support synergies, about half of them are of questionable value. The Cure line and Revive synergies are always helpful, but the Curse, Condemn, Haunt, Drain and Side Drain don't really help that much. As for the attack-oriented synergies, the Bolt line is underwhelming, and the Froth line, while better, isn't anything that special. And despite being a Tri-Elemental class, only 2 elements are represented in the attack synergy lineup. Overall, the Medium has some decent stats, but a lackluster lineup of synergies. Up next, we have the Ranger class. In its final rank of Warlock, it has pretty good HP, impressive synergy, below average attack and defense, and impressive agility. It boasts some nice elemental coverage with the Slash line for Jupiter damage, the Douse line for Mercury damage, and the Volcano line for Mars damage. When it comes to the support synergies, it has a handful, though their effectiveness may vary. The Break and Ward line synergies are always nice, but the Bind, Drain and Side Drain can be ignored completely. Overall, the Medium has some pretty good stats with high HP and synergy, and quite excellent agility. It also has some good elemental coverage, though the Slash and Douse lines are quite weaker than the Volcano line. Overall, the support lineup is questionable. Up next, we have the Ninja class. In its final rank of Master, it has outstanding HP, pretty good synergy, pretty good attack, below average defense and impressive agility. The Ninja is pretty much a purely offensive class, boasting some very hard-hitting single-target and multi-target synergies. The one support synergy missed is completely negligible, but aside from that, the class has some good elemental coverage. Overall, the Ninja is a pretty good class with enough HP to withstand many attacks, enough synergy so the Ninja will not run out of synergy immediately, a high attack and amazing agility, and even the below average defense stat is somewhat compensated by the insane HP stat. Up next, we have the White Mage. In its final rank of Pure Mage, it has pretty good HP, impressive synergy, below average attack and defense, and above average agility. The White Mage boasts some impressive offensive lineup with the excellent Plasma and Prisms lines, though the Venus element of the trio is sadly not present there. When it comes to the support, the class has the excellent Revive, Wish, Cure Poison, Restore and Ward synergies, as well as the unreliable dull and blunt synergies. In some ways, the White Mage is very similar to the Hermit, though it lacks the impact and high impact, which would have made the White Mage a force to be reckoned with. And even the Hermit has some superior stats, in some cases. Nonetheless, the White Mage is not a bad choice for a class. I would say that the lack of an offensive Venus synergy is its biggest flaw. And finally, we have the last tri-elemental class, the Samurai. In its final rank of Ronin, it has outstanding HP, below average synergy, above average attack, average defense and agility. It boasts some very powerful single target and multi-target synergies, as well as all of the stat boosting synergies, meaning that even the middling attack and defense stats can be improved. I would like to highlight a few of the single target synergies. First off, we have the Skull Splitter, which is technically the upgraded version of Helm Splitter, though the only difference between them is purely visual. They work exactly the same and they deal the same amount of damage. And then we have the Quick Strike synergy, which is easily among the best single target synergies in the game, with a pretty high damage multiplier and a surprisingly low synergy cost. It is, however, the only attack-oriented Jupiter synergy that the Samurai has, so, of course, there are no multi-target Jupiter synergies. Last thing to add would be to say that the Avalanche synergy is the one other synergy alongside Grand Gaia that is learned at level 54. Alright, we are almost done. All that's left is the item-dependent classes. We will go over them in the same order in which we obtain their required items. First up, we have the Pierrot. In its final rank of Acrobat, it has impressive HP, pretty poor synergy, below average attack and defense, and above average agility. The class has access to some interesting offensive synergies, especially the card line, which serves both as support and good multi-target elemental coverage, though the support cards range from unreliable to unnecessary. The Juggle line, which is pretty much available from the start, is strong enough to remain relevant all the way. Some other synergies seem like odd additions to the lineup. The Fire Breath is not only weaker when compared to the Juggle line, but it also suffers from the fact that secondary damage dealt by it simply inflicts 50% damage instead of the usual 80. And then we have the Backstab synergy, which is not terrible, but there are far better single target synergies that may also kill the target, with considerably lower requirements. Overall, the Pierrot is not a bad class. The card synergies provide it with full elemental coverage, and the Juggle line makes up for the weak Flame card synergy. The biggest downside is the lack of some better support, and the very low synergy stat. Up next we have the Tamer class. In its final rank of Beast Lord, it has impressive HP, dismal synergy, average attack and defense, and pretty poor agility. The Tamer class is a bit of a wasted opportunity. It has the most synergies of any class when you take into account that most of them have at least one upgraded form. However, some of these upgrades are either negligible or downright worse. For example, the Beast Lord's Minotaur synergy is the upgraded version of the Beast Keeper's Griffin, which is only 5 points weaker, but it has the very useful side effect of occasionally dealing double damage, which far surpasses the Minotaur. Other issues regarding the offensive multi-target synergies is the fact that they have secondary damage distribution, identical to the one that all monsters still have, meaning that enemies not being targeted directly will only take 50% of damage instead of 80%. The class does have access to some very strong single target synergies, so that alleviates the issue a bit. When it comes to the support lineup, it does have some useful synergies. The Impact line is always a nice addition, Cure Poison, Restore and the Phoenix's Revive are nice, and the Manticore serves as an effective, though weaker, Pure Wish. However, one major issue that hinders the long-term use and effectiveness of any of those support and offensive synergies is the absolutely dismal synergy stat and the very low agility stat. Overall, the Tamer is rather disappointing. The Beast Lord has some decent synergies, but that aside, it is inferior to the Beastkeeper when it comes to some synergies. Out of the three item-dependent classes, I will have to say that this is the worst. And finally, we have the Dark Mage class. In its final rank of Necromage, it has above average HP, impressive synergy, pretty poor attack and defense, and pretty good agility. The Dark Mage has some interesting moves. The Raging Hit line is one of the best multi-target Mars synergies available. The Poison Flow is unique in the sense that it is the only synergy that can inflict deadly poison, and it also deals significant damage. The Cold line is somewhat mixed. Cold Zombie is the only way the class can deal Mercury damage, and even then it is very weak. The Cold Demon is quite good, even without its side effect. And finally we have the Cold Dullahan, which is an amazing synergy that deals heavy damage at a reasonable synergy cost. When it comes to the support lineup, sadly the bad outweighs the good. Revive is always useful, Fear Puppet is interesting in theory, but all the other ones are underwhelming. Overall the Dark Mage is decent, it lacks some multi-target elemental coverage for every element except for Mars. The low attack stat somewhat hinders the amazing Cold Dullahan synergy, but it is still a great choice against bosses. For all the setup that they require, the item-dependent classes range from bad to decent, and their unique gene requirements end up disrupting the other classes. Alright, we are done with all the classes, thank god. So this is all for now. Next time we will finally face the boss at the end of this sanctum. See you guys